All right. Hello. My name is Tanel Erm, and I'll be your host today here, talking about careers. This is my first time to talk about careers, so I've composed some what I call poorly structured thoughts. And well, first of all, do you know who you want to become? No? Okay, that's fine. I think 6 years ago, so I've been working in this company for many years. Now I think it's 16, and 6 years ago I didn't know who I want to become, so that's fine. And so let's just get right into it. So I'll talk a little bit about myself. First of all, so I'm probably a little bit unorthodox, or in a, let's say, not a very standard leader or an engineer. So I have never studied any computer science or anything technical in my life. So I did study law, but my tech interest really got started from an early childhood. So my father worked in Cybernetics Institute, which is basically a couple of buildings that way, and so he brought home various quite basic computers that I somehow figured out myself. There was no manuals or no teachers really, so I somehow figured those out, and that's how my tech interest started. I joined Skype when it was still a small startup in 2005, and I have stayed at the company until now. So right now it's already a slightly different company. I have been in various areas over those years. It really never has gotten boring. So that's how I've been able to stick around for that long. And since July 2018, I've been the director for the Microsoft Development Center in Estonia, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a bit. And I like to call myself a serial hobbyist, so I have tons of hobbies. I play a lot of tennis, disc golf. I used to compete in billiards. I like reading about almost anything, from astrophysics to economics, and I don't know why that is, but I think it helps. And talking a little bit about the company as well. So obviously, well, you all know Skype, so this is how it all started, and currently, starting from October last year, we actually renamed our company here in Estonia to Microsoft Development Center Estonia, and I'll also talk about why we did it. We right now have 400 employees and growing, and out of that 400, we hired 100 or more throughout the last 12 to 18 months, so we've been growing quite a lot. And we have 40 teams of mostly software engineers, product managers, data scientists, operations people, but it's mostly tech. And what else? I don't want to stop here too long. So what do we do nowadays? In addition to building, still maintaining some parts of Skype, we also work quite actively on Microsoft Teams. We work on Azure Cloud Services, Azure Communication Services, so a ton of stuff that we do for Microsoft here in Estonia nowadays. And one thing I want to point out is that this company is actually the only engineering presence for any of the top tech companies in the world in the region. So we don't have any Facebooks, Amazons, Googles here, but we do have quite a big engineering center for Microsoft, so this is actually quite unique. I'll talk a little bit about the history and culture, and I want to talk about culture because I think even though like company culture seems like a very dry and weird thing, but in reality it actually if it's built up the right way, it actually gives very good hints how to think, how to act, how to behave to be successful in life. So that's why I want to cover the culture aspect. And just maybe share some thoughts I have from the years that I have worked in this company and as a manager. So really quickly, Skype launched in 2003. It's a way back, and there were no smartphones really at that time. So let alone video calling or even just regular calling was quite, I would say, expensive. And it became a global phenomenon. eBay acquired Skype in 2005. There was another sale of the company in 2009, and it was really like one of the, I would say, internet phenomena of the time. And Microsoft finally acquired Skype in 2011. And what maybe I want to share here is that after the Microsoft acquisition, so we're now moving from 2011 to 2014. So if you think about Skype and video calling at that time, then something that used to be completely unique actually became a commodity. So FaceTime, Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, all kinds of solutions, even just like WebRTC, which is a technology that enables any developer to build video calling into their web page, it became available, which meant that Skype as a phenomenon stopped being one of a kind. It became a commodity. And at that point in time, our office here was still mostly dealing with Skype, but Skype was being built across the world in other offices for Microsoft as well. So we had an office in London, in Prague, in Luxembourg, in US, in Moscow, in many places. And there were really, basically, there was a little bit of an identity crisis, because every employee here was identifying themselves with Skype, but they were really developing some aspects of a product that wasn't the big hit as it used to be anymore. So this wasn't really a very nice place to work in back then, because there was a battle of teams, technologies, and this NIH is basically what it means is not invented here. So the mindset was that hey, I built this thing, this is the best thing. If you build it in another way, it's actually it sucks. So so this kind of mentality was pretty widespread in our office at the time, and there was a lot of kind of this victim mentality that well, yeah, it is what it is, you know. Yeah, it sucks. We can't do anything about it. Yeah, there are some other people making decisions, and so this type of mentality actually was here, and it really meant that from the headquarters point of view, people started to high up started to make decisions on where they invest, create more jobs, where they take away some jobs, and basically we started to shrink here. 2014, 2015, 2016, so London office is shut down, Stockholm office is shut down, then later Luxembourg office is shut down. So what happened here in Estonia that actually prevented us from being shut down? But before I go there, I also want to touch a little bit, not the local Skype culture, but also the culture in Microsoft. So at that time, I don't know if you remember these type of things, but or if you have ever seen, but this is a Windows phone. So Windows phone, it actually used to be, so Microsoft acquired Nokia, and there was a special operating system on those Nokia phones. I really liked it, but the mentality was that well, you need to build your app for this Windows phone, and if it's on Apple, if it's on Android, doesn't work. We don't care. If it's Office that you want to run it on Windows Phone, don't run it on Android or iOS, doesn't work. So this was Microsoft's mentality. Like, this was a company that used to be a big monopoly, and then all of a sudden they realized that actually it's not working out anymore. I don't know if you have seen this meme. but this illustrates back then how various big tech companies were pictured. So you see Microsoft here is these organizations that are pointing guns at each other. And actually this very much reminds of the same situation that we had here in Skype. But at that point it actually started to change. So Satya Nadella became the CEO of Microsoft, and there was this new shift to what's called One Microsoft and growth mindset. I'm going to talk a little bit about what this is later on. And basically, throughout these, let's say, 8 years, or even like it happened even faster, it happened maybe in 5 years, Microsoft was able to transform from one of the companies with the worst corporate culture to one of the companies with the best corporate culture. So I'm going to reveal some of those secrets that maybe help. And this illustrates, like you saw the Steve Ballmer picture, which was previous CEO of Microsoft. This is the current CEO of Microsoft, Satya Nadella, saying Microsoft loves Linux. So back in the day, Linux was a competitor. Not right now, it's seen as something that actually complements us, open source. And these articles, these headlines, actually show how from 2012 these really negative headlines actually transformed into like promising, positive headlines that actually illustrate the change that the company went through. So, talking about growth mindset, what is it? So here, like a quick cheat sheet, we have the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. So for example, this kind of know-it-all, or hey, I know better, or hey, that guy is a genius, he must know like better than anyone else, is actually kind of swapped out in favor of learners or learning mindset. So there is no one who knows best. There is always actually something to learn, something to improve, and we highly value people and mindset where it's not about what you know, it's about what you can learn. And also things like risks, challenges, failures is something that should not be avoided. These are should be viewed as learning experiences. And I think like all this is actually like it's great advice for life. It's of course it's like Microsoft's company culture, but it's really just it's very good guidance. So I recommend to read more about this growth mindset. Also, how Microsoft, like why it matters. The fact how much people get paid in Microsoft actually is related to the fact if you are demonstrating this growth mindset. So there are these 3 circles of impact, where one of them is these individual accomplishments that what you do, but it makes up of 1/3 of your actual impact, which is the basis of how much money you earn, how much bonus you get, how much stock you get, and actually the 2 other circles are your ability to contribute to the success of others and your ability to build on the work ideas or efforts of others. So to really kind of enforce this cooperation is the whole point here. And yeah, so just wanted to show how managers in Microsoft actually make decisions on how much bonus someone gets. And last piece of corporate brainwash here is company values. And why I wanted to show this is because these actually are really basic, simple, humane things. There is nothing special about it. It's just this respect, integrity, accountability. That you show people respect, you treat them with respect, you say what you mean, you do what you say, and you take accountability if you don't. So it's very, I would say, basic norms of civilized society that Microsoft as a company tries to uphold in the company. Anyway, enough about that. So I'll briefly talk a little bit about my career as well. Maybe there is something which is interesting here. So I started in Skype as tech support, answering emails of people that said that, hey, I cannot call, I made this payment, it didn't work, or I don't know, Skype is not starting up, what do I do? That's how I started. And at some point, I got into the world of PSTN. So what the hell is PSTN? So Skype actually offers calls to regular phones all over the world, and it's basically the only thing that has ever made any money for Skype. It's a paid service, and Skype uses hundreds of partners across the world to connect those calls to the phones that you are calling. So basically, as long as you have internet from wherever in the world, you're able to make calls to any other phone in the world. So it's kind of like magic. But and all of this was built from outside, from here in Estonia. And I was one of the people that for many years worked on this particular thing. And because, as I said, there are multiple partners, then it also means that each partner has their own price list. For example, how much they charge for calls to Estonia. Each partner actually offers, like they come to you and say, you know what, even though I'm Telecom Nigeria, I have these really great prices to call to Estonia, why don't you use us? And then the question is, okay, your price is great, but what about the quality? So there is always this kind of, you have to figure out how do you actually get the best quality for the best price. And we had a lot of work to figure this out manually, comparing Excel sheets, running queries on how long the calls lasted. So for many years I worked in this, and at some point, and this happened after several years, like it was not like I did it for a month and then realized, hey, this is not very efficient. After several years in the space, I realized that actually this is growing to a scale that we are not able to handle manually. You literally need, like you're running a global telecom company and you're doing it with a team of 5 people. So we figured out that we need to find a way how to automate this. And that was like a great challenge for me. So it was given to me as a task. And I started to think, okay, so we have these people looking at these numbers. What's the thought process? Like what? As a person, my hunch says that I should use this partner in this country, but based on what is my hunch based? So I basically figured out or put into formulas and code this thought process, and it forced me to really like think it through. And I think this is the key point why I'm bringing this example, is that if you are forced to think something through, and without that you are unable to actually do anything, it gives you the what and the why and the how, like you actually start to think about those things. And if it becomes really clear for you, you have something that maybe others don't. So you have insight and you have the initiative. So that's what I got. I got some ideas and I figured it out, and I was given a couple of developers in addition to me to actually help build this out. So that's how I got into management, because I just figured something out, and I thought I had a vision in my head of how it should work. Others didn't have it because others didn't spend that much time figuring it out in this way. So that's how often you actually get this opportunity to, at least in engineering, to pursue this kind of path. And one thing that doesn't get old, so I don't know if you know what is situational leadership, but this is basically, imagine a situation where there is no leadership. Like you are, let's assume that you all came into this room and I don't show up. So there is just people in the room, nothing is happening. What do you do? So someone at some point says, hey, is someone coming? Or, okay, it looks like, let's call Tanel, maybe he, I don't know, is having difficulties finding a parking spot. So basically, this is situational leadership, where you take charge or show initiative in a situation that otherwise is left without any leadership. And I mean, this is all in retrospect. I realized that actually this is like a recipe for success, but I don't know if it's possible to consciously replicate this, that you think, okay, I'm constantly searching for places where there is no leadership, maybe I can give some leadership there. I don't know if it works like that, but this is like something which I noticed that it helps to be successful if you have the courage to take leadership in situations that don't have any. Let's kind of step forward here. How did I actually end up being the head of our development center? Again, situational leadership. There was and I'll explain like what was the situation. So in 2014, as I mentioned, the morale in the Skype office in Estonia was really not very good, and while many people complained, and there was also a lack, in some sense, of true leadership at that point, then actually some of us realized that this is a really big opportunity, because everybody was thinking about Skype, but then at some point you realize that Microsoft is a really big company. It has tons of products, services. Currently, it's one of the biggest companies in the world. So why wouldn't we use this opportunity to actually show what we can do here in addition to Skype, and actually get a much bigger opportunity to work on new products and services? And so we started on this thread, and we really we needed to win back some trust from Microsoft's senior leadership in the US, because they came and visited us multiple times, and even some leaked emails, I think, showed that, hey, like I went to Estonia and like everybody was complaining, and it looks like a lot of this not invented here syndrome, that if you talk about anything else, then they say it's bullshit. So we actually needed to do a lot of effort to win this support back from the leadership, and show that actually we have bright people and we can do stuff here. We managed to do it, and I'll tell a little bit about how we managed to do it in a second. But as a result, we actually started to get new products, new services, new development teams. There was a lot of support. So currently everybody is really stoked about, hey, Estonia, like we have really good reputation, and that's why we were able to grow like more than 25% last year, because they see that there is opportunity, we have the talent, we have the energy, the know-how, motivation. So this actually ended up in a very good way for us. But coming back to how I became the head of the development center here. So in 2018, already we had quite a lot of work coming from other parts of Microsoft, and if someone would come into a job interview, they would ask, okay, so I'm applying to Skype, so which part of the app will I work on? Like, do I need to move this button from here to here, or like what's the thing? It's a ready product, so what? Like, and we spent a lot of time explaining that, you know, like we are not really, like most of our stuff actually is not related to Skype. We're working on other products for Microsoft, and it became like in 2018 we had really tough time hiring software engineers to the company because they had no idea what we were working on. So I actually like started to see some of these issues and started to see how we could potentially solve them, how we need to rebrand ourselves, how we need to do a better job with inside the company, communicating outside the company, spread the word. So really again figured out this what and the why and how we can make it happen. And I started to build a team around this vision, and I guess that this vision is the key here, which enabled me to step up, because if you know exactly what you think needs to happen, and you have the support to do it, then that's pretty much all you need in many situations in the life. But coming back to some observations from this time in 2014, which wasn't very nice. So this I really love this point about this kind of bitterness and this victim mode, that it's so easy to do it, and if you do it, and if you even worse, if you have some authority and you do it, then you can rest assured that everyone else around you will be doing the same thing. It's so incredibly easy to do it, and it's super contagious. So if you want to screw something up, this is what you can do. Also, this kind of arrogance or sarcasm are things that I wouldn't recommend in any situation, even if you feel frustrated, even if you feel it's warranted. It doesn't help in any regard whatsoever. So this should be avoided at all costs. And one more point I want to make here: it doesn't matter how many good people you have. If you have a couple of people that make a loud noise and they basically leave the impression. So that's why dealing with this bitterness, open kind of arrogance, and this type of behavior is super important to make sure it doesn't spread, to make sure it doesn't leave an impression of something which is not true. Also, a couple of positive observations. So one thing is that I'd like to talk about is courage, and again this situational leadership. One of my previous bosses a couple of years ago said that every one of us is a leader. It doesn't matter if you are actually in a managing position or a superior of someone or something, it doesn't matter at all. Each one of us has an opportunity to do something and take charge of something, and what this takes is just a little bit of courage. And talking about courage, courage isn't about not having fear or not being afraid. I would call that stupidity. Courage is doing something in spite of fear. Even if you're afraid, you still do it. So that's what I would say. What is courage? And just maybe I like to remember that every once in a while, that it's okay to be anxious or scared about the situation. Even for me, public speaking, or I have done it a lot already, but it's not something I do. It's not pleasant for me. It's not something I enjoy. It's something I do in spite of feeling discomfort. So, and one more key ingredient is passion, because it's so much easier to do something that you really feel passionate about, because it takes almost zero effort. So, if you can find that thing that creates this passion, that drives some sort of emotional attachment to whatever, whether you are, I don't know, fixing old electronics, or you are painting something, or you like to sing, or whatever it is. If you do it with passion, if that passion drives you, then it is so much easier to become successful than without it. It is possible other ways as well, but this passion really helps, so try to find it if you can. Curiosity. So I also think this is a defining property of almost all successful individuals I know. If you have the innate need to understand why things are the way they are, how they work, why people think the way they think, why some processes or whatever it is, if you try to understand it, if you like to understand it, it is a very powerful asset. And I think yeah, it's like my personal observation about just having a lot of interests, and I feel that it actually helps me a lot, that I need to understand how things work. And also, of course, not only about stuff, about people as well. So empathy and this kind of ability to imagine is super important. If you want to influence someone, then it is so much easier if you actually figure out what is their thought process. Why are they thinking the way they are thinking? Because my sincere belief is that if someone has a viewpoint which is radically different from my viewpoint, then probably he has some information that I don't, or I have some information that he doesn't or she doesn't. And we are basing our thought process on different assumptions, and also there might be that we are prioritizing different values, but it doesn't mean that the other person doesn't have a rational thought process, unless they are completely crazy. But very often, even if you think someone is crazy, they actually have a very rational thought process that is very rational for them. So if you understand it, if you try to understand it, it unlocks a lot of tools for you to change the situation if you want. And of course, communication. So one thing I wanted to highlight here is that it's okay to be openly vulnerable. And if you don't know something, say that you don't know something. Like this, the worst thing that can happen is trying to fake confidence. If you think you need to be confident but you really are not, and you try to somehow fake it, it actually comes across as arrogance. So if you meet people that are arrogant, then like very often you actually realize that that they have something that they are insecure about, and they don't have any other way. They have to put up this barrier. They have to pretend that they are confident, while in reality it turns out not in a very nice way. So try to avoid this as much as possible. I think these might actually be some of the final thoughts I have. Talking about careers, don't worry about having a plan too much, because I have never had any, to be honest, I have had zero career plans almost ever. So I know some people have a very methodical way to approach this. I go and study this, then I go, I don't know, do some internship, I do a master's, then I go and find a job in this sector, and then so I have never done it like that. I don't know how to do it like that. I know many people do it, but it's okay if there are many ways how you can become successful. Sometimes you can plan for it, sometimes you cannot. So just don't worry about it too much. And what matters more is the right environment. So this is what happened with me. I just ended up in an environment which fostered growth, which gave me enough time to get deep enough into it that I started to notice, realize things that could be changed, that could be improved. And if you are in an environment where you can grow, then it is just, well, it is very likely to happen, as opposed to if you end up in a, I don't know, maybe a good example would be from technology sector. For example, if you are a technical person and you go to a let's say you go to a supermarket chain as an IT person, then that's all, like, you're basically already at the top of the potential career ladder that you could have there, because it's like, it's not like you become a director of the supermarket chain from an IT manager. It doesn't work like that. Whereas if you go to a company that does software engineering as its core job, there are countless opportunities. Or it doesn't matter if you're in finance. It's similar to being an accountant in a firm that has nothing to do with finance. Like, you're in a factory, you're an accountant in a factory, then that's pretty much like maybe if you're really good, you can somehow sneak your way into a CFO like job there. But typically that's not how it works. But if you go to a company that actually has a lot of finance related departments, then you actually are in an environment where you can grow and learn. So this environment is really, really important. I already covered this, so I'm really an introverted person, and I don't necessarily enjoy these public speeches that much. Having a small group here helps. So yeah, it comes back to this this courage. And maybe one more thing about superpowers. I asked in job interviews often, like, what's your superpower? And these can be very, very different things. People are typically not very prepared for this question. One superpower, for example, that I don't have, that some people think it's like a basic human nature or property, or like it doesn't cost anything. But for example, an ability to focus on something that you don't really find interesting, or an ability to do, I don't know, finish some sort of study for an exam that is about some topic that you really like. You think about, like, why do I need to know this, or why am I doing it? If you are able to do it, that's a superpower. For me, this superpower is really weak. It's not a superpower for me. So I have other things I do well, but this is not one of them. Yeah. So this is what I wanted to say. That hard work is also a superpower, and that's it.
So we have also Microsoft Service headset. So someone who asks a really good question from Tanel, and Tanel will decide himself which is the best question he hears. He or she will get the new Microsoft Surface 2 headset. And we have actually several questions in online already. Okay, I will start with the first one. I'd love to hear what has made you choose the path of working yourself up in one organization instead of changing organizations several times.
Okay, that's a good question. If you're in a company like this, you actually have the opportunity. Like, it feels like doesn't feel like one job. Even though I've formally not changed employers in a while, then to me it doesn't feel like I have been in one company. It has been evolving so much, it has been changing so much, and there are so many different departments that do so many different things that if you feel that you are able to grow and it is interesting for you, then I think it's much easier to do it in one company as opposed to finding yourself in a very different. I mean, obviously there's this kind of extreme experiences also help you grow, but if you're able to get what you need without having to change employers, then I find it like a plus. So similar to whether you need to go to a different country I don't know, live in a different country or get a job in a different country, as opposed to being able to do it from one country. I would view it in a similar way, because some people really feel that without this abroad experience they would not be the same people, or they would lack some sort of critical component, whereas for other people they don't really desire that experience. So I guess it depends on the person.
Next question from Lisa. There is a growing shortage of tech workers in the scene, globally and in Estonia. What is Microsoft doing to win talent?
Well, we are trying a lot, right? So it has gotten a lot easier over the last years because of the fact that because of what I shared here earlier, this culture is becoming to show. So in US, even in Estonia, people are coming. Like I ask people when I'm interviewing, why did you apply? Why do you want to work for Microsoft? And actually, people very often have it thought through. Like they actually know the company, they know the values, they know what we are doing, and so for us it has actually become easier over the last few years because of the culture and because of the success that Microsoft has had. But it is true that overall we do have a lack of tech talent, and well, Estonian immigration laws for top specialists help a lot here. So some part of our workforce and for other companies as well is coming from abroad, and it helps to boost this a little bit.
Next question from Marlene. Your career is from a chaotic early stage startup to a huge worldwide corporate. Which one would you choose now if you were 20 years old starting to build up your career?
It's very much related to the. I don't think there is a good answer here, because they are different in some sense, and they give you different types of experiences. So I would say the best is a combination of maybe trying one and then the other. Because they grow you in different ways. It is easier to go with a startup when you are younger, especially when we're talking about really early stage, because many of them actually don't succeed at all. So if you go to a really early stage startup, it's easier to do it when you're younger in some sense, because you maybe you don't have, I don't know, mortgages and kids and some sort of stable expenses that you constantly need to cover, so you have more of a maybe flexibility in some sense. But yeah, that's the answer.
This is a very tough question. I know all CEOs hate it, but where do you see yourself in 10 years? Asks Timo.
Well, I guess I already answered that question. I mentioned that I have zero career plans. Or I've never had any kind of concrete career plans, so I have absolutely no clue. As long as I have good challenges to work on right now, then that's all that matters. If I run out of them and there are none of new ones in sight, then of course I need to find them. But this hasn't happened yet.
Well, Timo has one more question. Could you share one of your biggest career mistakes and what did you learn from it?
So. I don't know if this is like possible to synthesize that quickly, but this kind of automated routing algorithm that I invented back in the day, I really for many years I pushed for this to actually get wider adoption in Microsoft, and there were multiple reasons why it was difficult to do it, and I can take pride in actually not giving up and pushing for actually several years to make it happen, and it never really ended up like it didn't become a reality at the end of the day because of multiple reasons, and this passion sometimes can actually also hurt if you really believe in something, you do it with passion, with emotion, and you just see that it is very difficult to get it done, then I guess at some point you need to realize when it's like a good time to call quits or maybe find some completely different approach, because it has the potential of burning you out. So I don't think I have burned out on that particular topic or instance, but I would say that maybe that's something which I look back and think that maybe it could have gone better.
We have a question from classroom.
Yeah, Lawrence, my name. I have a question about. It's like more of a technical question, with which also has a follow-up question. So, what was your problem-solving approach for solving the PSTN scalability issue? And because that's like a very technical problem to solve, do you think that there is also that problem-solving algorithm you feel like you have also used in management, maybe, or like is there something? Because, yeah.
Well, I guess the approach was trying to model the thought process, like trying to model the human thought process. You could say that it's maybe a flawed approach because it's a very mathematical thing. Like if you take quality, you take cost, there are various parameters that make up both the quality side and the cost side. So it's very mathematical. I don't like math, by the way, at all, which is why I studied law. But I somehow ended up still like dealing with a lot of these maths while I was dealing with this issue. So my approach was to try to model the human thought process and try to understand how I'm thinking or someone else is thinking, and then put it into like algorithms or formulas. And I think this is actually a very it's not applicable in every situation, but in dealing with, I don't know, human beings, I think a similar approach to try to understand how the thought process works actually helps.
Okay, we have two questions from Evelina. Her first question is, what is one leadership style or quality which gets a lot of hype but is actually toxic?
So, maybe this kind of what some people might characterize as a strong leader who has a very and I know that I have been like this at times as well, where I have a super clear picture in my head and I know exactly what needs to happen, what needs to get done, and sometimes you feel like other people get in the way. So I think that's actually not a very good leadership style. I think other people actually provide really valuable perspectives that you can leverage to understand the potential issues your approach might have. So having this maybe a little bit authoritarian style, I would bring out as potentially toxic leadership style that sometimes seems like it's charismatic.
Alina's second question is, what is your best trick to get that sweet dopamine flowing? And she asked that it is essential for keeping up the motivation, but often we get the kick from the wrong sources.
That's a super complex question. I guess so. Is the question, where do I get that dopamine or
energy?
I think it has to be a mix of, like, work cannot be everything. So it has to be a mix of finding interesting challenges in your work, having good friends, socialization. It doesn't need to be friends, can be family, can be whatnot. This kind of socialization, definitely for me, it's one of those things. And of course, activities outside of work that you really, really enjoy. And I have lots of those. So I think that actually helps a lot. Like I try to play tennis every Friday evening after the work week is done, and I find it super good to let the steam out, and so I guess it's a mix of those things. There was maybe something else in the question as well. That
no.
Okay.
Two more questions from online, and if everyone wants to have a question here, we can take those as well. But two last questions from online. Elmo asks, where did your passion as a tech support come from to think of new ways to improve Skype's business?
I don't know if I had any passion at that point, early point in my career. I mean, there must have been. I mean, definitely, I didn't hate it, but I don't know if I had like lots of passion for it. So it doesn't come overnight. Before I started in Skype, I also did some tech support in another company as well. And to be honest, I really hated that job. it was awful. Like when I think back at it, it's really like it makes me smile right now. But it really was awful. But at the same time, how do you know if you don't try it? And also each experience is building some sort of like it helps. For me, it was a stepping stone to give me some work experience and enough expertise in something so I could actually go and apply to a position in a company that was far better with far greater potential. Because if I wouldn't have had that experience, I wouldn't have been able to apply. So sometimes you need to do things on your way that maybe are not as that you maybe are not feeling that passionate about, but if you know that it's a good experience, then it still is helpful.
One last question from online again. The best leader or manager you have had in your journey and why? How has he or she impacted your leadership style?
Super deep questions. So I have to say it was one of my recent bosses from the US, Scott Van Vliet, who now works. He left Microsoft recently. He now works on space rockets, and he was a truly inspirational leader that actually demonstrated how to inject enthusiasm and energy into your people. Like he was super open and happy and always like very it was visible the energy that was emanating from that person, while being also super technical and understanding things through to the detail. So maybe that's something which who I want to be as when I grow up.
That concludes questions from online. If anyone has a question from here, we'll take the last ones. But if we don't have, then I would just give you a quick recap of what was the question, because I think you have forgotten already some.
Of course. Yeah. But are there any other questions from? Okay.
Maybe I have one more question. How much would you say your passion has contributed to your success in you achieving your goals? And do you think, like, where would you be without having that passion maybe for that?
Honest answer is that because I also told you before that I don't have that superpower to work on something that I don't find interesting. So I would be nowhere. Without this passion, I would be absolutely nowhere. I don't know. So for me, it's an absolutely key ingredient. Some years ago, I would have never imagined that I even have anything in me that would get me to where I am today. So I think it's mostly thanks to that passion. So.
We have one last question. Carmen, we woke up late. If you had an opportunity, what kind of advice would you give to your younger self?
I think I summarized it pretty much here, but it's so just relax, try to find the right environment, don't worry about it too much. Things will happen if you let them. So that's not very revolutionary, but I think that's pretty much it.
Okay, just so that we are clear, probably will also give to Microsoft feedback for taking active part in the discussion. So you already have it. So that is something compared as a subconscious bias to reward those who are present. But I will just do a quick recap. Marlene asked what made you choose the path of working yourself up in one organization instead of changing them, and she also asked about your managers and leaders who inspired you. Lisa asked the shortage of tech workers and tech talent. Timo asked where do you see yourself in 10 years, and also can you share some of your biggest mistakes? And Verina asked about the dopamine, and she also asked about the one leadership style which gets a lot of hype, that is the toxic. And Elmo asked about your passion as a tech support, and we know government, as she asked what kind of advice would you give to your younger self. So we have a lot. If you now remember something that sparked your mind when you were answering that,
So the first one was Marlene.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I think that would be the selection from my side.
Okay. But code, you will get Microsoft feedback. So thank you for actively taking part. And this concludes. Tanel, you can wrap it up.
Thank you. All right. Bye bye.